the permission to eat meat is sort of an accommodation for that reality. Well, I can accept that. I mean, that makes, if that is what it's saying, or one of the ways in which it's been understood, I think that's true. We do, humans have evolved eating flesh. So, but it seems to be presenting it as a necessary evil, which is better than presenting it as a joyous thing in and of itself, which
right.
meat sometimes is. So this seems a vegetarian-friendly verse to me.
Right. Okay, let's keep going. What's the next thing that grabs your?
Well, can you tell me real quickly? I mean, are you?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Are you a vegetarian for at this point for? Is there any ethical component to your vegetarianism?
Well, I guess I'm a vegetarian largely out of habit, but I think it's a good habit. So that's why I keep doing it. It's not really one I think about a lot because I've been doing it all my life. I've never eaten meat in my life. So yeah, I think
never in your life.
Never in my life.
Magnificent.
Never in my life. So
wow.
I think it's like a good practice. It's just like I've never smoked marijuana in my life.
Wow. Well, that surprises me.
So it's not like a ongoing struggle with me that I'm like dying to smoke dope, and I don't. I've just never done it, and I think it's a good thing that I've never done it, and that I don't do it. And so I think it's a good thing that I've never eaten meat. And so yeah, there's an ethical component. I think it's good. It's better for the world, better for me.
Yeah, I mean, and it seems in Judaism that there's a stream of thought that's consistent with that. I think that Rav Koch, who was very influential in the settler movement, at least, has the idea was that he was a vegetarian for reasons that seemed sort of esoteric to me. My understanding was that he thought all the sparks, kind of the Kabbalistic sparks, had already been elevated, and that had to do with why you no longer had to consume flesh. But the point is that it does. He did think it was a holy practice to abstain from meat, and that not everyone was capable of it, but that it was the right thing. That it was spiritually preferable to do that, or Judaically preferable to do that. So it's good.
Well, what are the ethical reasons that you abstain from eating meat?
I just think it's unnecessary. I mean, I have first-hand experience in when I was in Israel. When I was 18, I worked in a turkey coop. It's these are creatures that are capable of distinguishing pain from pleasure, that have natural drives, and are harmed by the inability to express those drives. I think that commands a certain kind of recognition. They're not human beings. You'll never see me agitating for the right for dogs to vote. But I think that it would be better. Look, if I had to eat meat to survive, I would kill the cow myself and chew its raw flesh with my wisdom teeth, whatever. But it's not necessary. So why do that? Why participate in the brutalization of creatures that we don't need to brutalize to survive? There's no reason to do it.
Right.
Except that it's gratifying. Eating meat, especially if you're in the habit of it, is gratifying. Well, a lot of things are gratifying. I mean, it's the same reason. Just because you can do something and it's pleasurable and no one will stop you doesn't mean that it's ethically neutral.
Right.
I think people get confused and think that, well, if I do it, no one is going to call me an asshole, so I guess it's not wrong.
Right. So I'm looking down now at 13 verse 2. There arise among you a prophet, a dreamer of dreams. He gives you a sign or a wonder. The sign or wonder comes to pass of which he spoke. He says, let us go after other gods which you have not known, and let us serve them. Shall not listen to this prophet.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that Judaism is probably more suspicious of miracles than any other religion of which I'm aware. It's like certainly miracles are the essence of Christianity. I mean, this is what I just read is the kind of how Christianity came about.
Right.
And and miracles are a huge deal in the gospel, and while there are certainly miracles in the Torah, they're not as big a deal.
Well, it seems like, actually it's interesting, I hadn't thought of it until you just said it, but it seems like they're seen as a big deal because of their persuasive value. Their value, like when Moshe is trying to show Pharaoh that he's for real,
right.
He turns his staff into a snake or whatever, and all sorts of neat tricks like that. So it seems like it's like a magic show. That even Hashem's miracles at Mount Sinai, that it was it's like I'm thinking of the anarchist theory, like of terrorism as kind of like violence as a performance. It's a propaganda of the deed. So that's the role that miracles seem to have here. It's propaganda for the faith by virtue of check out what we can do, and this shows you that we're for real. And so we like it when the miracles come from within our own tradition, because then it's propaganda for our faith. But if someone from outside the faith comes and is doing miracles,
so they're strictly instrumental. I mean, to the degree that they support what the Torah says, that's great. But the moment they deviate from what the Torah says, then
kill it.
Kill it and pay no attention.
Well, that's my look. And I'm coming from. I claim no expertise in any of these areas. I'm just working with what I've got. But certainly that seems to be my interpretation of, because it even says that in the Art Scroll commentary here, that he'll have some kind of spiritual sensitivity, this guy, and so he'll be able to predict things and do other things that we will find compelling. But don't be fooled, Israel.
Right.
Don't be fooled, because he's just because he can do that doesn't mean that he's the real thing. So, yeah, it seems instrumental to me. Don't tell.
Right. Again, it's not a very spiritual book.
Right.
You can do all these spiritual things in the world, and the Torah doesn't give it much credence.
Right.
It's much more interested in what you eat.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, look, that's why. Yes, I mean that's why when in Christianity, when Jesus says it's not what you put in your mouth, when he's repealing the kashrut, it's not what you put in your mouth that makes you holy, it's what comes out of it, or something like that.
Right.
He's referring not to emesis, but to the words you speak. I think.
Right.
So, it's again for maybe it's because this generation we're raised in an American culture, which is very deeply perfused by Protestant thinking or tradition or whatever. But on that one, I'm on Jesus' side.
So you would say it's not the food that goes into your mouth that contaminates, but what comes out of your mouth. Because you're a vegetarian, so you're not on Jesus' side.
I am. Okay, fair point. Yes. Okay, good point. I guess what I'm saying is that yes, what goes into your mouth is what you eat.
Is important.
It's important because it has consequences. What you choose to eat has consequences, both for yourself and for others, and that needs to be respected. But the emphasis on purity. Now that's not. I'm not a vegetarian because I want to be ritually pure in any way. And if I do accidentally eat a piece of meat, I don't really care. I just want to avoid that again. And in fact, I did eat a Big Mac once to get 2 friends to go veggie for a month, and it was well worth it. But though the Big Mac sucked, I was surprised. But I guess what I'm saying is that holiness is not a function of the ritual purity of what you're eating, whether or not it has this particular scale, or whether or not it's a function of how you the conceptual framework from which you approach the world, the ideals with which you approach the world, and then the way you attempt to project those into the world around you. And that's what I would think by what Jesus was saying by what comes out of your mouth.
There, chapter 13, verse 7. If your brother, the son of your mother, or your son, or your daughter, or your wife, or your friend, who is as though your own soul, entice you, saying, "Let us go and serve other gods."